Folks, I don't know who needs to hear this, but let me say it again. Real estate investing is never easy. It is not get rich quick. It is not all of this stuff that you see online. It takes real work. It is never easy. Mistakes happen. Mistakes could cost six, seven figures. They could be really, really bad. So I thought we'd just have an honest discussion with the one and only Brian Adamson about some mistakes, and we'll talk about what happens in the real world. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, Mike. How you?
I'm doing well, man. Don't you know that real estate investing is easy? You just sit on the couch, you collect mailbox money. You can buy anything out there. Everything cash flows. Yeah, man, it's easy. I don't know why we're complaining.
I don't know what it is. I think I missed that era. I think that's what for some
I
reason when
must
I
be doing
started,
something wrong.
things had changed. You know what I mean? It shifted. And so timing is everything. I guess I missed the boat. I do wanna say, Mike, not very often that I differ with something you say, but something you said in your intro that real estate is not get rich quick, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you can get rich quick. You can't get wealthy quick in most cases.
Ah, okay. All right,
Right? If you
all
come with
right.
active income strategies, right? You flipping and wholesaling, you can get rich pretty quick in real estate. We got students that build multiple six-figure businesses in 12 months, but
Sure.
getting wealthy will take time.
Very good. Well said. I love that. And I agree. Yeah, if you're wholesaling, and six figures is the number. I know plenty of people have done that. You could do that in three, four, five deals. In some markets, you could do that in one deal.
That's true.
But yeah, wealthy is it takes time, man. You need to own assets for years to
For
really get
sure.
wealthy.
For sure. And I think, what we're going to talk about today is a perfect complement to the statement you just made, in that you got to hold assets for years because acquisition is the start of you becoming wealthy, but it is not the determining factor of you becoming wealthy. That asset has to go through several different stages, from acquisition to stabilization to then optimization. And so, I think that we've got assets in our portfolio, Mike, that are probably in varying stages of that process,
Oh,
to
sure.
where I think that's a great thing for us to talk about today. And so for me, I was inspired, and this is going to sound funny, but I was inspired by a 6, 7 minute video that I saw you as I scrolled YouTube the other day, talking about 4 painful things that happened in your portfolio here recently.
Yeah,
One of which stuck out tremendously, which is the $35,000 roof, which I'm sure you'll get into.
sure.
But myself, I had a couple weeks ago, my 20 unit building,
Uh-huh.
one of the units, I guess during the polar vortex or whatever, it was a vacant unit and the pipe burst,
Oh,
right?
oh yeah.
And of course, it was an upper unit. It dripped down into the unit below it, right? It only happens that way.
Yeah,
And
it's always
so
upstairs. It's always
it's always
upstairs.
upstairs. And so we, probably got 7,500 to 10,000 bucks to turn that unit upstairs that was impacted, because the water froze in the unit, right? So that's a
Oh,
whole nother
yeah.
problem. And then the downstairs unit, we were able to move the tenant into another unit, but we given her some concessions, along with all the other mediation that we got to do for her stuff that got wet and impacted by it.
Yep.
So that's just one of the things that happened in passing. Another one, let's see, we had a basement at one of the units start backing up, right? Because
Hmm.
we've been buying vacant units and doing rehabs and putting our people in from day one. Well, you get 7, 8 tenants in this thing, all of a sudden you start uncovering other issues that you didn't know existed. While we ran
Yeah.
cameras and all of that kind of stuff, until you have people living in these buildings, you just don't know. And so
Right.
we had to one of the main stacks in the basement, we had to tear open the floor, cut back about 6 feet, tie in, cut out the existing pipe, tie in a new piece,
Ah, yeah.
and then jet the whole system. So that was, I don't know, 4 grand, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I'll start with those two, and love to get some more feedback from you, Mike.
Yeah. And again, this video that I put out was really thanks to the audience. I'm hearing from more and more people that have their first unit, and something breaks. And what was supposed to be 250 bucks cash flow is suddenly not. And maybe they have to reach into their emergency fund to kind of fund that.
Mhm.
It does get easier. I really think real estate investing tries to bust people out, right? It's like, how committed are you, right? I shared with folks, I think it was Saturday, 4 things that happened in the last 2 weeks. One of which was the 35. So again, I'll go through the 4 negatives, but then I'll tell you how I handled them. Pretty much like you, right?
Okay.
$35,000 roof, cancellation on insurance, tenant ghosted me, tenant, an evicted tenant called code enforcement,
Mm.
right? An evicted tenant called code enforcement. So all 4 of these things taken by a newbie could crush you, could overweight you. Now let's just remind you that there's an other side. The roof. Well, we bought the building in 2006. We have had reserves put aside because roofs go bad. It's just time, right? It's whatever that is, 16 years, 18 years later, roofs go bad. That's why we have reserves. Tenant ghosted me. Well, it happens. They get the U-Haul truck at night, they load up, they disappear. Well, we just clean it out, rent it, and we raise rents, right? Just keep on moving. Insurance. In California, we're seeing lots of people get policies canceled. My insurance has gone up 50% when I go from insurer A to B. It's just, these things are happening. And then the favorite one that probably people want to talk about, an tenant we evicted who did not pay rent for 9 months, who we had to spend like $1,500 on attorney fees, called code enforcement as the final FU on the property. And again, what I choose to do in that situation is basically say, good. I want all my units safe. I will use the code enforcement report to judge my property manager, judge my repair teams. It is what it is. This is a people business, and some people suck. Some people are evil. And yes, even though this tenant cost me $1,500, almost 20 grand in back rent, they weren't done screwing me, and they took one final shot. Learn and move on. So yeah, it's all about mindset now. And again, I've been doing this 20 years. These are all things that happened in the last 2 weeks.
For sure.
That stuff happens.
Exactly. Yeah, in this business, in life in general, but in this business specifically, if you can change your perspective, you can change your life.
Yeah.
Right. And if you could change your perspective, you can have a great business. And that's essentially what you just articulated, is your ability to change your perspective. It's not woe is me. It's not this is happening to me. You actually took the position that this is happening for me. Right. And that starts with accountability, and everything flows from that. Right. I look at one thing I applauded my property management company for this past week was one of our units. It's a 4-unit that they manage. One of the units, the Section 8 didn't pay for 2 months. The reason Section 8 didn't pay for 2 months was because the furnace had went out, and the maintenance guy, I guess for whatever reason, couldn't access the basement for the furnace. Something goofy happened. The property manager was in Fiji, and he didn't know. And so long story short, thank God the thing got fixed in 2 weeks. But there was still some issue with Section 8 hadn't checked off on it. But the property management company told me last week, they said, we're paying you for December and January. I said, hold on, let me hit the record button.
Yeah, say that again.
Let me hit this record
button.
You said, what now? I said, man, I really commend you guys for stepping up and owning that, right? And because they could have ran interference. I didn't have to know exactly what happened, right? They could have came up with a story enough to, hey, we fixed it, but you missed December and January. They're like, no, we're gonna make sure we get you that money.
Respect.
Yeah.
I like that. That. And that really goes back to, and you shared on the channel many times, right? You have weekly calls, you're building a relationship, you're giving them. The last thing they really want to do, because they value your relationship, is have this thing be the thing that causes you to question that relationship. So instead, they went the other way. It's like, nope, we're going to double down, make sure he's good. A couple $100, whatever it is, $1,000 is not worth damaging a fruitful relationship. And
Sure.
yeah, when you treat this as a people business, you'll be surprised, positive and negative. You will
Mhm.
obviously have people you evict that do mean things, but there will also be stories where people step up. I remember a time where somebody did a repair for me, and the I think it was a water heater. For whatever reason, that unit ended up being bad or continually going on or off. I don't remember the details, but
Mhm.
they came back and put a new one in, no charge. They didn't have to do that, but they value the relationship. So
For sure.
um, I like all of that. So uh, it's never easy though, right? I mean, it's just there's always something. It is the mindset that you choose to kind of tackle.
Yeah.
Also, you got to have reserves, man. You can't be running. That's the one thing that I think is important is I know a lot of people are like, dude, I got these reserves, I got these reserves. I could buy something else, but I have to dip into my reserves. No, you can't. Never dip into the reserves. That's crazy.
I got a question to that, Mike. I'm glad you brought that up. How do you feel about buying a unit or units and literally just letting that cash flow pile up for the first year and don't touch it?
Um, I mean, if I'm buying, so when I buy a property, Brian, I always have a plan before I close.
Hmm.
So I have bought full units and just ran them like they were part of the portfolio, right? If somebody turned, I would fix it. But I bought plenty, especially in the first 10 years that were occupied, and I just put them in the portfolio with no big investment,
Hmm.
a capital investment. So I don't mind. Now traditionally, at least the last couple of years, I bought junk, so they all require investment, and most of them are vacant.
Yeah,
But yeah, the first decade, most of the stuff I bought was full, and I just ran into cash flow.
for sure. And the reason I asked that, right? Because there's somebody watching this video that's wondering, I want to get my deal, but I'm not going to be very liquid at the time in which I do. And certainly if I have to put something down, I won't be liquid post closing. And so the reason I asked that question is because I just felt as though we have to give those people permission to say, listen, understand it's a long game. So don't try to grab the money out of the deal immediately. Let that cash flow serve as building your reserve account for the
Yes.
first year and then start to look forward to the cash flow. Because the thing that you got to appreciate is that before you made the purchase, you didn't have an asset.
Yeah.
So if you can go another 6 months to a year by maintaining that same type of, resistance, if you will, and just let that cash flow stack up to where now the money you didn't have when you started, you now have a nest egg so that the years forthcoming and things pop up, you do have a reserve account now.
Yeah. I want to talk about this a little more detail because it doesn't happen a lot now, but kind of 18 to 21, there's a lot of people doing Burr at an accelerated rate.
Hmm.
And they were celebrating how fast they could extract their capital back. That's not what's happening today. I generally feel more debt just because you can, not always a great idea, right? Debt on debt on debt typically ends badly.
Hmm.
And again, I say this as somebody who put on too much debt on his first house, right? I did a cash out refi. I had no context of amount. I took the maximum, and frankly, it was a mistake. An asset that was helping me ended up hurting me after I took
Yeah.
out too much debt. I am really scared for the folks that think Burr or whatever the next Burr thing is that you could build a portfolio with no money. It's
Yeah.
not as easy as everybody makes it sound.
It's not, Mike. And I got the same horror story. Property I bought in 2006, which was my first one. I lost it when all of the '08 stuff happened. But then inadvertently, I was able to pick this thing up for pennies on the dollar. So I bought it again in 2009, right, for like 28 grand. And I paid a 147 for it in '06. 3 years later, I was able to buy it for 28 cash.
140, that's hilarious.
Crazy, right? So I let this thing build up for 10 years. And then I finally do a cash out refi because I've gotten this gumption that I want to start flipping houses. So I'm like, oh, let me get liquid. I'm going to do a cash out refi. Did the cash out, and it was good for the first 2 years. No, not even 2 years. The first year, taxes got reassessed. Taxes almost tripled. All of a sudden, I got negative cash flow now on a thing that was printing money for me for the 8 years prior. And so, you know, that's and everybody argues this point, Mike. Oh, but it's still DSCRs. It's like, but until it doesn't, right? I don't care that it DSCR'd on the day that they gave you the loan, but you can't control taxes or insurance. You just heard Mike say he got dropped by an insurance company in Cali. It's going to be 40, 50% more than what he was paying to pick up the insurance. You heard me say that my taxes tripled. There was nothing I could do about it, right? So those are two variables. While your interest rate may be locked in with that lender, the insurance and the taxes that you have to have, right, that you've got to pay, you don't control how they increase. And so you can quickly end up in a negative cash flow situation if you are over leveraged.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the goal of this game is not to become the biggest, right? I think a lot of people focus on size or doors or whatever. The goal at the end of this is to have enough income coming in where you can quit your freaking job.
That part.
That's the goal. And if you're just adding debt on debt on debt, you're really not getting closer to the goal. And you risk, like, if you have all this debt piled up and the market's like 2020, who cares?
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's going up 30%. You're all good. But you know what? The goal of this business is to hold long term. And you may have a 2024 where it's flat, and then what? The other thing I want to say about this, I'd love your opinion, is I think real estate investing tests all investors, you and I included, for the first 5 years. It is trying to bust us out. It is trying to make it look hard because the rewards after 5 years are so good.
Yeah.
That's something I really believe. What do you think?
Yeah, I echo that sentiment. And honestly, I believe that if you aren't tested in those first 5 years and you have too much early success, it can actually be more of a detriment to you than a benefit.
Yes.
Right? Because when you're met with adversity early on in this business, it teaches you the reality that it is an adverse business. And so if you don't encounter that and you think, because what happened is this, you had this false sense of reality that everything is peachy, and you'll start aggressively hedging out and buying more. And then when all the problems start happening, they're going to snowball at a rate to where you're going to end up having to sell this thing to pennies on the dollar to somebody like me or Mike, you know? And so I actually, if you're met with adversity when you're first starting, be thankful. That's the best thing that can happen for you. Like, so that you can start learning all of the things that really go into being a long-term owner. And if you don't get that experience up front, it will be horrendous for you after the fact when you don't anticipate it nor think that it's possible.
Yeah, I just want to kind of put this image out there, right? So you're in the game, you're struggling, you got one rental house and it feels like the world's imploding on you. Well, to Brian's point, let's assume the first 5 or 6 years are great and you're now at 6 houses or 8 houses. And then Murphy's Law comes in. Now you don't have one thing go bad. You've got 3, 4, and they're cascading. And it'd roll over you like a Zamboni. I mean, it would be brutal.
I know from experience, Mike. That's all. Right. And it's yeah, so be grateful. And more importantly, document the challenges.
Yes.
Whatever your strategy is, whether it be mentally, physically, write them down, document them so that as they come up, you already have a fix in place and you're not. Most investors, unfortunately, they keep doing the same thing over and over, and they think that, I don't know why, but they tend to think that it's like unique each time. It's not unique. It's a fundamental. And if you don't fix the fundamental, you're going to keep seeing this problem show up in different ways. And so the more that you can document them, the more that you can start to put systems and processes in place to help preempt a lot of these things happening. You know what I mean? So I just want to encourage people to really do that. Don't just take what's happening to you as a one-off. If it happened once, it'll happen again. Like, take heed of it, start putting preventative measures around it so that it does not keep happening to you.
Yeah, one of the things that's very clear, whether I'm selling software, where I was an accountant or building a real estate portfolio, mistakes happen. They're to be expected. And if you treat them right, there are opportunities to learn. What I will not tolerate is repeating a mistake.
Mm.
When you repeat a mistake, it's expensive because it means you didn't learn the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very, very expensive. Well, Brian, you're going to be out in Vegas with us here this weekend. I look forward to that. Get some pictures. People are going to mob you. It's going to be fun for me to watch just all the people come to you and go, Brian, I want your picture. I want your picture. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait.
I guess I better wear something nice then, Mike.
Yeah, you better come dressed to impress, man.
Yeah, yeah. Now I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm excited. I've been thinking about my talk all week, and I just
When do
look
you come in?
forward.
When do you come in?
I get in. My wife asked me that yesterday. I don't know. I
I
gotta find it
I
out. It's
gotta check.
important. I just know it's Friday. I know it's Friday. I'm there enough time on Friday. But
There you go.
yeah, I'll send you a text once I figure that out.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw it, but Ryan Pineda is hosting an event his place 4 to 6. So I don't know if you get in early enough to partake in that. But
Okay,
if you want to meet Ryan, I probably can make that happen 4 to 6 on
for
Friday.
sure. For sure. No, that's good, man. I've been to that place. I shot a podcast there
Oh,
with
that's right, with his
Brian
friend
DeVille.
Brian
Yeah,
Davila. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, no, if I'm in town, I'll be there.
All right. Very cool, buddy. Take care of yourself. Thanks
All
again.
right, man. I'll see you in a few days.
There you go. Yeah, you'll actually see me. Yeah, in person.
Yeah, exactly. We've been doing it for a few years now. I finally get to meet you in person. That'd be pretty cool.
There you go. There you go. Thanks,
Yeah.
buddy.